Good morning, class. Welcome to Homeroom with Unc and Market Monk. Morning, P. How was your week?
Yeah, it was good. A lot of what we talked about did kind of end up panning out. Nvidia having the blowout earnings. You did see the day after that there was just so much concentration in that one stock that a lot of others kind of stayed stagnant. But I was able to catch a couple sympathy moves with SMCI and and some other stuff. Um, Still really interested in oil, natural gas. Uranium. There's a lot of setups that are taking shape over the next 4 to 6 months that aren't tech centric, that aren't the big thing that everyone's talking about. So that's kind of where I want to be. Small caps are still a big part of what I'm doing to a greater extent than they've been. I think that continues as well. Buy and hodl in the memes is not working. People should not do that. But there is a lot of range, and you just got to kind of wait for a spot. I think GME's hit one of your levels a couple times and took off from there.
Yeah, I was on the mend most of last week, but still, the work you did 2 weeks ago sometimes pays off for you, especially if you're hanging out in that Barnes and Noble and Wolf. Good time to scale out for me last week. Other than that, I was pretty light. Um, Volume seemed light in review after
Yeah,
I think Thursday or Friday I ran my 150 previous week scan on volume, and I had like two names. And then I bumped it down to 100, and it still only went to like 10. And I mean, we were already. Usually, I run that on Wednesday, and I don't think I ran it till Thursday night. So just low volume overall seems like it was present last week, which I'd expect this week because we're short a day. Um, and then the other observation I had was kind of said in a video when we break through that 1,000, we should go to 1,100 quick. Well, we definitely broke through 1,000, but didn't really have the gas to get all the way there, even with the activity in it and the really good news of the split, bringing that back down to a price point people can trade.
yeah, and the split thing. I'm in a couple stocks that I think are going to do that too, and I think Nvidia is kind of the first domino. AVGO doesn't make a lot of sense for them not to split with it up at 1,400. I thought they were keeping it above 1,200 mainly for the split, so it could be over 100 when they actually do it. I mean, that was kind of my thinking there because that level was sort of option driven. It did make a lot of sense other than that. But yeah, no, I think that'll continue to be a pretty big story. And then, the we talked months ago about wanted to be in hardware, not software. Dell was a massive winner in that idea, and there's a lot of others, and this demand for semiconductors is not slowing down. It's a story the market likes, and the fact is there isn't a limited amount of semiconductor stocks. But when you look at the big picture, that you're not going to start a foundry to make chips right now. But on the software side, people start up software companies all the time. There's a lot of redundancy with it. And the biggest factor to me for why a lot of SaaS is struggling is the market doesn't have a story that it believes yet for how AI is actually going to be profitable for these companies and, um, actually get the way that people are going to use it. There's a lot of FUD about AI. You've probably seen all this stuff about Google's AI results and things like that. So how are people going to make this work? It's a big reason Snow sold off, uh, and in their earnings call was initially up 11%, ended up down 6% the next day. So I think that's going to continue to play out. Doesn't mean I don't like software. I think we wait. I think we find spots we want, and then the market gets forgiving, and they start to recover. And you're not going to see massive moves to the upside here until the market has a new story about AI and software, and you separate winners from losers. That's my read of the situation.
Yeah, just from a outlook standpoint, the hardware software is a pretty easy one for me. Like software is easily duplicated. Someone can reinvent that wheel constantly just by adding a feature or a different interface, so to speak. If you go to the chips, like you can't reinvent that wheel. You can't come out with a processor unless it just has to run faster and smoother. It's kind of it's hard to upgrade that, so to speak, or to put makeup on that. Um, and then the AI profitability, I mean, the story on that, in my opinion, is just reducing workforce still. I mean, Night is young there.
Yeah.
They haven't really figured out a way to make that super profitable besides, oh, we can lose some jobs here and this robot can take care of it. Um, versus the human aspect of, like your drive-through orders. Like we can replace one employee at the window in with this billion-dollar tech. It just doesn't really
Yeah. Yeah.
seem like a profitable thing. I think um, where we'll see it first at is like in the agriculture industry. We talked about it with John Deere and
Yeah. Yeah.
Cat. Like the AI could really change the game for those guys if it becomes a product they can sell to to just include in their interface in their cabins and whatnot in their trucks. Not necessarily making them you know um, run on a robot. There'll still be a human in the cab, but just making life easier for those people. And
Yeah, absolutely.
do you
And you think about the ability of it to evaluate soil or zap weeds with lasers, or like you do see some big potential there for sure.
is ass a thing to you? AI as a service? Sorry.
Oh yeah. I mean,
I mean, is that how they make it profitable?
think so. I think so. And just a way that, and not even necessarily like a path. The path to profitability is more important than the numbers. And so and again, for me, it's always about the story. And Nvidia told a story about demand that they actually, that they delivered on, and that's what keeps fueling this move. And you haven't really seen that in software yet. When If you remember when software was better than hardware, it was because um, all the supply chain stuff and just the uh, demand wasn't there. Everyone's overstocked on chips and all that, and then they had no way to move them around and everything. And so like software was better because it's like, okay, remote work, it's not something tangible that you have to worry about, and that's where you saw some of those really explode off lows. So yeah, we just need a new story. The other area of AI that I think is a place you want to be is energy, and that's kind of where some of these uranium trades are coming from, because that's kind of the new thing is to meet power needs, more nuclear plants, just greater demand for uranium, all that. So, and that's part of why utilities as a sector has just really taken off. Haven't been in that a lot, got in a couple, but um, that our power needs that's gonna be a big thing. And I still think you kind of fall back on oil, natural gas is going to be a big thing you have to do, especially in the U.S. So it doesn't hurt to have that angle going too.
No, Q3, Q4, I really like energy just because of the direction that, you get the election coming in and then what direction are we going to go. Obviously, one side is a little more, drill baby drill, and the other side is what's best for the environment. So I think that will be in play definitely the second half of the year. Like you said, if you get any kind of story attached to it, um, that really opens things up, in my opinion.
Yeah,
Um,
they're rebranding nuclear as green. I mean, you can see it already, and a lot of countries in Europe don't really have any choice.
yeah,
Um, but um, but yeah, I mean, you do, if they have these carbon footprint benchmarks that they signed up for, you can still meet that and do nuclear because there isn't a carbon footprint there. So I do think that will continue as well. The move in solar. we were definitely on that. Um, our idea that First Solar was the best one definitely kind of uh, dramatically panned out. I was only in shares there, but yeah, that's a sector where I don't think it's quite as simple as just saying like, you know, Republicans think solar is bad, Democrats think solar is good. That one is rate sensitive, so anything about interest rates, solar and real estate would probably be where I'd look. Where we get clear. All we need is clarity there. We don't really need it to actually happen, but the idea that it's going to happen.
Just to touch on natural gas, the question, I mean, we're talking power, so it's not way off
Yeah.
topic, but um, I watched a thing over maybe the last 2 weeks about how like we're kind of exporting a lot more natural gas than we ever have. Like we've become a supplier to Europe on natural gas. Why is it staying so cheap? I mean, that's what I mean. Why aren't we getting a premium for this stuff? It feels like it's still kind of at a affordable price where most energy isn't. Like, just doesn't make sense. That didn't make sense to me.
Um, yeah, I don't really have a logical reason. I do think that it's has the potential to get really explosive. So I mean the price, you call it manipulation or whatever, but the price is being um, suppressed, and are are we still kind of at an oversupply? I don't know the actual numbers on that, but that had been the story through at least March, that the warm weather and supply glut and all that we're still a little oversupplied. But I think that's probably going to shift pretty soon.
Yeah, no, it's just interesting to me. You think we'd be getting a premium for having to ship it so far, not really have the infrastructure to ship it far. Probably put a little bit more on it since it's going to cost to get there, and the prices are stable. They weren't where they were. What was it, a year and a half, 2 years ago, when it was like $7 to $9 when they first had their energy crisis over there,
Yeah.
because of the disappearance of some pipelines. But
You're right. Right.
yeah, just some. It just I always look for the irregularities or when, 2 plus 2 equals 7, and that kind of seems like that's what's going on there. Um, to me, like,
Yeah, it really needs to find some strength in the 220 to 280 area, and I think it's got to stay up here. You don't really want to go back to 180, 150, something like that. But if you're trading it, investing in it, like you want to see it build some strength here, because I do think it's going to get to that $4 to $6 area late summer, fall. That would be what I anticipate on that.
yeah, it's just a very, very interesting situation and how it plays globally at this point. Um, yeah, I mean, because even I guess it doesn't really relate to the nuclear as much, but it relates to a lot of the I don't want to say it's not geothermal, but a lot of the generators that run off of that. Um, you just think there'd be a price increase or a premium on it right now, and there's not. That 350's always stood out to me as kind of like the center line, since I've learned it from you. That's kind of where you
Yeah,
want to be, and we're just not really getting back there. It's very, very interesting. I love the charts, especially if you're a slow player. If you have a few years, I mean, I definitely think we'll get a spike in natural gas at some point in time in the next 10 years. It's just
yeah,
inevitable, but that it's not playing out quickly, which is the opposite of uranium. Uranium, I expect to kind of be a slower, longer play, right? Because you're gonna have to twist their arm to get back onto that, like we were in the 70s and 80s. And um, natural gas, I just thought would be a quicker move.
yeah. Well, uranium uranium isn't really a day to day move you can follow in the pricing, just because it's also secretive.
Yeah,
So it'll just all those closed doors, and then you get a price update, and the chart jumps, and it goes from there.
I did have one question for you that I did write down in this week of a lot of resting. What's your take on crypto creeping into politics and how it's going to affect things from a stock standpoint?
Uh, well, I think that definitely. Trump is aggressively making himself the crypto candidate, and then Democrats have kind of softened to it. Yeah, I mean, Elizabeth Warren's still kind of on the warpath about it, but overall, like you've seen some legislation, come through. So I do think it's creating a favorable environment. I don't know that the people who keep expecting, like an Ethereum ETF approval, like that's going to just send it all. Not it's not really playing out that well. So I think to me, I think we do get significantly more upside. It just might be a little bit more sustained as an uptrend as opposed to just the big explosive overnight 8% moves. I don't know that we'll get as much of that, and and I don't really know what, like, if Trump won and wanted to follow through on any of these crypto promises. I don't know what it's going to do to really improve that environment. It's more about blocking the negative than you know some big positive. He's not going to make crypto our money like a South American country or something. So yeah, I think overall it's positive. A little bit like the weed environment. That I do think you can get some decent news pops, and then news is likely to be positive. I think that'd be my major read on it.
Do you think you think if the orange guy wins that it'll make it more stable or more volatile?
I think the the ETFs kind of fully taking effect, and then the having the actual results of what it does, um, that increases stability, and I think him as president could definitely contribute to that. There, if the idea is like he's going to veto anything anti Bitcoin, um, that might help the boomer investors and the ETFs and stuff stay in there. So I've always thought that about the ETFs in general, that it does create some stability, and it really kind of nerfs the big moves to the upside. So that's why I don't expect Bitcoin to just double from here very easily, like it did when it was much cheaper and fewer people were in it. I just my only concern with Bitcoin is like, where are all the new buyers going to come from? I mean, we have the ETFs now and everything, but the amount of people that you need to keep it moving up grows as it goes up. So I'm just wondering how you sustain that. Do we have to get to a point where it actually has some utility? Because it still kind of doesn't. Um,
Yeah.
and so that kind of has to happen, and that's where the crypto services come in. Square, I think, is a big player in that. But people using Bitcoin to do something, that's going to have to eventually happen for it to keep going.
Yeah, in the big picture, what I gather from all of that is like to get big money, or old money is probably the better term, into it. You need to be a little more stable, but the backside of the utility is to get those guys. I think you got to get rid of the Pepes and the
Yeah.
the Costco coins and all of that before those guys take it serious. And that right now is the utility, if I understand it right. Like that's usually what you use Bitcoin for right now, is to buy other shitty coins or move them around exchanges. It's not really for
Yeah,
transactions or
and it's
stuff like that.
the big meme ecosystems are Solana and Ethereum, but Bitcoin is kind of the center of the universe in the crypto world. As much as people want to pump up those other ones, it's still attached to that. So people, the Bitcoin maximalists, want to say we have Bitcoin and you have crypto, and Bitcoin isn't crypto, but that's not how Joe Sixpack, or your retired bank executive, or whoever, like that's not how they see it. The doctor wanting to throw a bunch of money into something, it's crypto's all kind of the same to him. And yeah, and I agree that the coins that go up 10,000% and then rug, I mean that's not something that's going to be a serious investment instrument. So yeah, the meme cycle does have to kind of die down, and they do. I mean, we've seen it before, but you got to have something different. Yeah, I mean, I will say, like, if you want to send money internationally, Bitcoin is easier, cheaper still than a lot of the ways to do it through your bank or something like that. But people still associate that with some level of criminality, I think. So that kind of makes that use case a little more difficult. And you still end up, you're still gonna you convert it from your currency to Bitcoin. You send it to somebody before they do anything with it. They still got to convert it back. So it's a lot of steps involved there.
Well, I mean, in that, if they could streamline it a little bit or make it user friendly, I just think on the wire transfer, it could replace that in the long run as a
Yeah,
basic
yeah,
utility, and be a little bit more secure than the system we have now. I mean, I'm sure you've wired money. It's a process. You basically got to go into your bank and sign some things. It's not super streamlined when you get up there into tens of thousands of dollars. So maybe that
yeah.
is
That's
the first utility on the banking
the
side.
blockchain does solve a lot of that. So absolutely.
Yeah, RFK wants to put the whole. He says it weird to me, like boomer. Like I want to put the whole government on blockchain. It just really doesn't make
Well,
sense. But
there are like blockchain to do accounting and audits. It has applications in the legal system. Although I don't know if I'd want, you know, anyone would want their trial to be decided by, by the blockchain or whatever. But there are negotiation disputes, arbitration. Like there's things that it can do for that.
elections.
We're yeah, 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 yeah. We're still a ways off from the public buying into that, I think. But that's kind of what he's referring.
Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. Um,
What
what?
what's your take on some of the? Have you been following any of the earnings reactions lately?
Yeah. Just fragmented by sectors. Oversold is still where you want to be. Just your company comes out and says we're staying alive. Um, you're getting that initial bump. Just not a lot of follow through in most things. I'm noticing.
Yeah,
Um, but it creates a range that's very tradable, especially if you're a fill the cup, not greedy trader. A lot of those names are great to stay on. Um, I just what I look for, and I've never really talked about it a lot, but I like companies. Granted, we all know I trade the shitty pennies. That's where I grew up at. Um, I like companies that have the 0 to let's say 10 cents negative earnings. I like following those companies
yeah.
because as soon as they turn their EPS profitable, um, they usually get a pretty good bump. So I like to follow those more than anything else. The big fish, like your Nvidias, your Pfizer's, Costco's, Home Depot's, Google, Microsoft, Apple, all of those, they're just so much to unpack. Tesla, even, there's a lot to unpack. Where the smaller companies are pretty simple. How close are you to profitability? How much cash do you have? How much cash are you burning through? They're pretty simple. So for me right now, the range is great. The follow through is ass, and people are keeping the lights on more than expected. We haven't seen a lot of names just straight go out of business. I think the FUD you're getting right now in that regard is the restaurant industry. You are getting some there, but other than that, people are finding a way to manage through these times of high interest
It's
rates.
yeah. Stores still struggling. Truckers, there's a lot of truckers going out of business. So I think you're just seeing those kind of consolidate around some of the bigger names. And one thing I'm looking at there is as what is that one?
Old
Old
Dominion,
Dominion. Yeah, yeah. And so like as a someone like that who's going to buy up these smaller ones,
sure.
their stock usually takes a hit as that happens. So that to me creates an opportunity later because the end result is they get not a monopoly but a bigger market share,
Yep.
and that's only gonna benefit them. I still mainly I said this months ago that this SaaS stocks are going to be the ones that get the big drops on earnings. Workday just dropped 15%, so I look for something there. sometimes it's right away. Sometimes it takes some time. Net had a big drop a couple weeks ago. It's still, kind of finding its way. But I mean, those are the big opportunities for me. Where all it's got to do is just retrace half of that move, and that's a great trade right
Yes,
there. So
yes.
it doesn't have to break new ground. They don't have to turn things around and have a blowout earnings next time or anything. It's just the chart taking a breather, catching back up, and that's your trade. And then sometimes with those, you can even keep some long term. That's how I had a net average in the 40s when it made that move up. So that's always what I look for earnings, is that those opportunities. I like the ones that drop, that I've been on, that we can just revisit some previous spots.
For me, software as a service, the sector in general is a graduate sector. Since
Mm-hmm.
we'll stick with that. I'm not a tech guy, so in general, I'm not really a tech guy. So understanding what companies have to have and what's a luxury to have, um, I think is important, because if they can cut back on something like that, they're going to stop using it. And a lot of those companies have, big contracts with big names, including our government. And if they lose any of that, it's usually a chunk you can't replace. Um, so I see that happening in that sector where, they might still be doing really good business, but they lost 10% of their client. That's 40% of their business. Um,
Yeah.
just doesn't really pan out for them, where the market doesn't want you to have the same revenue as last year. They want 3 to 5% more than last year. They want you to constantly be growing, to continue that story. So for me, that's always been a hard space to trade, um, in general. And I just don't think there's many winners. We're back to the one or two winners just in the sector, because they have to be needed to grow right now. Um, cyber
Yes, and if
cybersecurity would be like the one I think is the most bulletproof over there. Where like cloud space, you can pivot or shop around or kind of limit that as much, or maybe even come up with your own infrastructure from a company. Again, I'm not the biggest tech guy, so
well, it's why, like, I Dropbox as a service, I've used it forever, and I just stuck with it because I like it. It used to be that they were really the only one that went from Windows to Apple kind of seamlessly. Like, you change your file on your work computer, and at
mm-hmm.
home it automatically updates it. So that was the early cloud thing. Obviously, they all do that now, and so achieving growth for them, very tricky. I think in general, if you're someone that Microsoft pays money to do something, you're on kind of dangerous ground, because they can just decide to do it themselves, and that
Yes.
goes for pretty much anything. And that's why ZS struggles sometimes. Any news on Microsoft on in that regard, there are stocks that are gonna get punished for that. So yeah, I'm totally with you, and it's why Snow fell on earnings and just kind of kept going, and had another one, and a little more muted reaction this time. But you better get a level you can trust if you're going to trade those.
Yeah,
You don't want to chase those.
the one that's always been, I guess, against the grain or a little puzzling to me is DocuSign, because just from the surface standpoint, my flat brain loves it. I mean, it makes total sense. Like they should be growing constantly, but it also seems as the story goes on that they don't have enough proprietary to where they can't be replaced, or to be something else created, or you kind of figure out how to do it on your own. The
Yeah, I
Microsoft is a
mean,
great example.
Adobe kind of does what DocuSign does, but just not as well at all. I mean, but they're just so big that if you get the Adobe suite, you get all this crap that goes with it. You could use their document signing as part of it, whereas DocuSign's kind of um, its own entity. But I will say, any kind of virtual document, I've had everything from my company health insurance, leases, anything like that. Like, it's almost always DocuSign, so that they do have they do seem to have a pretty good market share. But I agree with you. It's all about the growth story, where that's going to come from.
Yeah, it's kind of. I mean, not to backtrack too much, but when I was working in the paper industry, I was ad sales guy way back in the day, and the paper I was at, we were all Apple. Like the whole thing was Apple, and not in the most tech friendly sound, even though I am in the Pacific Northwest. You would go to places and you just could not convert a file over to from Windows to Apple. Like it just wouldn't open up. You'd get some error message, have to call your tech guy.
Yeah,
I've been an iPhone user since the beginning, and for me, that's not a thing anymore. They've all kind of figured it out on an individual level. Like you don't have to third party it seems anymore. So
yeah,
um,
yeah.
those those companies, I mean, not that they're worthless, but there's just a workaround in most cases. It seems like. Let's
Uh,
pivot here. Let's go ahead. You got one more?
oh yeah, yeah. I was gonna say just with um, I mean, obviously, like Microsoft kind of made its way into Apple, and they started doing Word and all that stuff. But even back then, there was still differences in the Apple and Microsoft version. So yeah, that is a lot more seamless. PDFs are still, I mean, half the people I work with can't figure out how to actually input something into a PDF or make a PDF where you can fill things out. So for whatever reason, that is still kind of lagging a bit, despite all the tablets and touchscreens um, that we have. So that would be sort of the next big thing, I guess.
You don't lean on Google Drive a lot.
I don't, just because my job's all OneDrive for Microsoft
Okay,
automatically. So
okay.
yeah.
Just curious on that. And my wife is pretty much lives on that Google Drive as from the teacher standpoint. So I was always curious on that. Let's pivot a little bit to the room. What I didn't see shit.
Yeah.
What's going on over there?
um,
How y'all doing?
yeah, I saw people, being a little more patient. And then one of the things I thought was good to see is that if people do want to take some heavy risk on zero DTE, that it's $50. It's not 500. So that's good for them to do that, I think.
Oh, looking at more
Uh,
price point on ODTs.
yeah, yeah,
That makes sense.
yeah, and just the and kind of learning. I think with the option world that it's not just you can get the direction right, but if you're in the wrong contract, it's just not gonna work. I didn't get as many of people trying to throw off the wall setups at me or something. So that, I just reiterate: if you want to bring something into the room, bring your work with it, and not just a ticker. So kind of stay on that. And we talked a little bit about, people were talking about Twitter and just sort of this trading environment where, like, to me, people are kind of trying to market losing right now. I don't know if you've noticed that, but like the posting these big losses on stuff, and then creating I'm going to make a big comeback story. And these are accounts with 50, 70,000 followers. And I mean, I'm sure some of those followers aren't legit, but there's just a lot of nonsense. So I think if you're trading and you're in this space, just try to take it seriously and professionalize yourself and get out of the multi-bagger mentality. Any kind of multi-bagger should be something that's like one contract or one little sliver of position that ends up taking off. 20%, 10% just needs to be good enough, and we've shown that you can do that, over and over again.
Yes, I mean I still use Twitter for news, but I noticed probably start of the year, maybe even a couple months before that, when we were in the we were still in the September to January thesis, and they were all calling the top, shorting the shit out of things and just watching money burn. Um, these accounts that do have 50 to 300,000 followers, how do you post and get 6 likes? or 10 likes,
Yeah,
or I
yeah,
mean that to me is telling. That ratio is very, very telling. Like there's just not a lot of eyes on their stuff. Their diehard fans, I guess, are still around. Um, for me, it's not a place. I mean, it's fun, but it's not really a place for trading. I think we've learned through the years, like even the even the engagement we get there is usually the wrong kind of engagement. But it's our only source for new eyes currently. I mean, just to be 100% honest, it's not like we go to
yeah, yeah.
Backpage or Facebook or something like that, or TikTok or I don't know, Rumble, whatever, and have an outlet to get our information out there to new subscribers, which obviously isn't a super big deal to you. um,
Well, yeah, I posted so like Deck, this stock that was it's fairly new to me. The UGG boots and Hoka shoes. The company's been doing really well.
yeah,
And before the earnings dropped, I said, hey, look at this one. I actually went shares. Yeah, they're expensive, but the options, you'd have to, you know, trade 3 grand or something. But so that wasn't worth it. But then it made this huge move, 14% on earnings, $128 move on the stock. 25 million shares has that kind of look to it. So
yep.
I post that on Twitter. The first comment is, you know, thanks for the short idea. And I was just like, why is this a good? Why is this a good short? The puts are three grand for something close to the money. It's had follow through on its previous big moves. So I mean, what are you even saying? But that is the typical reaction. That yeah, same thing happened with SMCI. Um, Same thing happened kind of the other direction with Riley. We sort of posted the top on that, and it followed through. So
How's Chipotle
there's just
doing?
a yeah, it's just a lot of ego backed up by nothing,
Yeah.
and it's just especially when it comes to shorting things like that. They want to go against the grain, and that's kind of their whole um, their whole mentality. And I asked him when I asked him why is Deck a good short, he's like, "Oh, I looked at the zoomed out chart." And I was just like, well, the zoomed out chart looks pretty bullish, so I don't know what you're seeing. But anyway, yeah. So that's kind of the typical Twitter thing
We're seeing the
that you see.
longevity of how good at social media versus good at trading is actually panning out for a lot of people. I
Yeah,
mean, it's a constant pivot, and I mean, their game is to throw a bunch of shit against the wall, and whatever sticks, get your attention to stay there, versus what did not stick. I mean, that's always been the game over there. That's why you get. Um, I had a good conversation with Carlos. He actually checked in on me. Shout out to him. Um, uh, just about like that they don't really have good trades. They just have good volume, and you get caught up in that. Like they're tweeting 20, 30 times a day. That's what makes you a big account. Like you have to catch that algorithm,
yeah.
and get picked up, and it's just it doesn't make you a better trader. So I'm not doing it. I'm trying to be a good trader, refined trader, and golf more. I'm not trying to, you know, I guess I have my nest egg. That's probably why. Um, yeah, it's just a different mindset on what they want to do and what you have to do to be good at that. I guess is like anything. You have to apply yourself and be consistent. It's just not. It's not for me. But those guys are
Well,
really good at it. They're really fucking good at it. They just are. I give them credit. They know how to create engagement um, on a scheduled basis. Just like we show up here every Sunday, how we do our notes kind of the same every week. They do that
yeah.
with their tweets. I mean, it is what it is.
No, that's true. And I'll see people even on their wins. So that their win will be like Novavax from 1450 to 1550, and we were on that under $5.
Yeah.
So it's like it's just sort of like there's a difference doing here. We find a setup, kind of park in the move, and you know decide when to sell. We're not chasing the minute chart on a stock like Index.
You kind of run it back to the room a little bit. A point I mean, well, I wrote it down right after I said it, right after I got off the phone with my man Carlos over here, because we had a really good conversation. I mean, we start out making sure you're okay, but we always usually get back to the trading because that's how we met. And uh, Unk usually comes up with some good one-liners every then, and I dropped one on him that was kind of eye-opening to both of us that I definitely want to share here today. But we were just talking about like how to get into plays and stuff, and why do you get in here? And um, in that, I said to him, you would rather be uncomfortable buying um, than uncomfortable selling. Like you
Yeah.
don't, you don't want to be in a position to where you're like, I gotta fucking sell this because I'm in a bad spot, and that goes back to the buying red candles. Um, on the, I mean, granted, I'm a share trader, so it's a little different than the option side or what you're looking for, but you are gonna be a little uncomfortable when you buy something if it's the perfect entry. It's gonna be failing or it's gonna have a couple bad days, and it's just a something I never really thought of, but it's a post-it note for me now. I would much rather be uncomfortable when I buy than uncomfortable when I gotta sell it. Um,
Yeah, Elf is the most recent example of that for me. I was, it was just real adamant. I'm like, so under 168, I'm just gonna keep, I'm just gonna keep buying this. Well, then it goes to 160, got all the way down to the 150s, and I was like, I am gonna buy more here. That was the kind of the plan to begin with. Um, that was a little on the edge. I did have some, some puts into earnings just because trying to, protect that. There was some discomfort in building that, but I was confident in the setup. I saw it there, and then just huge move up. It was testing the 198, 200 range from the 150 something ads, and that easy to sell on the way up like that. But yeah, I mean there is it takes time. The setup's still intact, and that's where just as an options trader, don't get yourself on the wrong side of that profit calculator, and you're fine. And that's why shares, I think, are so important
do you
and
have
should be the bulk of what you're doing.
you see screens right now?
Yeah,
Nah, nah,
yeah,
nah, nah. Just random, just random.
yeah.
Um,
Right.
I do want to say something to you that I don't know if you've realized you're doing, um, but you're fucking doing it, and I don't know another word. I hate saying it because I don't like to feel superior, but I'm proud of you as a
Yeah,
partner. I'm proud of you. Um, it seems like when you're unsure on a setup, when you're sure, you just fucking buy your options. Like you know what strikes to do. You kind of know where like the whales are buying here, so I'm buying here. You have that math in your head. But when you're unsure, you buy shares,
yeah.
and that's some
That's true.
growth. That's some growth I've seen. I don't know if you know you're doing that, but it's pretty consistent that that's where you are. I don't know if it's 70% or 60%, but when you're not 90% sure, it feels like to me, you just buy shares and you size accordingly usually in those plays. You do still have that I'm doing the work, so I'm getting some. I got to be in the
Yeah,
game, like I'm
yeah,
going to the baseball game, I'm putting my bet down.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
but but it's something I've seen from you probably over the last 3 months where I'm like, it's opened my eyes to the stuff that's 3, 4, 5, 12, $1,300. Like, well, fuck, professor's buying shares too. He's doing it right on the sizing. What the hell am I doing? Um,
yeah.
like I wait a minute, I'm working here too. I can trade stuff that's over $50, or stuff like
Yeah.
that. So, yeah, yeah. What's your thoughts behind
I
that?
think
Do you even know you're doing
um,
that or?
I no, I do. It's been kind of a reassessment. I think the I don't like to be in options that expire in the next 6 weeks, where I need a move to happen pretty soon. Like I need a move in the next 8 days to feel good about this. Because it's very hard to time some of these like that. And Elf is a good example. Elf stayed down maybe like a week longer than I thought. It had a false breakout. Um, really hard to hard to manage that kind of thing. So if I'm going to be in options for a long time, they have to have a lot of time to them. I like leaps. I like in the money leaps. Okay, well, that rules out, Elf in the money leap, the 2 grand, 3 grand. I'm not going
Yeah.
to really do that. So, so to be in it and to be able to, you know, scale in and out, shares are much better. And then all you got to do with that is, you can do some options here and there, but you just let go of the idea that, I want 300% out of this trade just because I know we're going to get 10% in the underlying. Make it to where that 10% in the underlying is the trade, and that's fine. And that's where the sizing comes in. Sizing enough for it to be worth it for you to put that time in, and see that follow through. And I can just say too, with Wolf and with NVAX and all those, it's felt really good to just have something already when the move you see coming happens, and
Yes.
you don't have to pinpoint when. I just use that term park. You just park some money in there, and wait. And I even did that with AMC of all things. We had that crazy move. I was already in it. I don't have to worry about, do I want to chase this? No, I never want to chase it. So yeah, that has been a big shift for me. And so most of my longer term options are oil and metals mostly. Don't mess around a lot with that with tech, and I certainly wouldn't with SaaS. I mean, we've seen how long these moves take.
No, it seems like price point, from what I gather from you, what you just said, the price point is a big part of that too for you.
Yeah.
Um, like, yeah, you're not trying to camp 3 grand in options for 3 weeks
Well,
in
yeah,
one
because
option.
what I like to say is, the when people try to micromanage the stuff that I'm in leaps on, I just try to tell them, honestly, I'm like, I'm not really looking at this every day. I wasn't looking at Quark every day, or AG, or not really that worried about it. Um, and it's because of how much I have in it. It's not really that much. If I if I had 6 grand in a John Deere leap, yeah, I'd be worried about it every day. I would. I mean, I'm not gonna I'm not gonna lie about that. So yeah, I mean, it is about like how much I have in, and just letting the trade play out, is much easier to do when you have $10, $50 options than one $3,000 option.
Yeah, no, that was, I mean, just that game. I mean, that's kind of not the option part, the share side. That's just how I
Yeah,
play. Like Barnes and Noble's the most recent one for me. You guys can go back and search the group. I mean, I called that 20 cents weeks ago, and for me, it's just getting the sizing right. I mean, am I putting 3 grand, 2 grand into that? No, but 200, $300, you goddamn right. Let's go to zero. That's
yeah,
kind of my option, and then the flow comes in, and you get a big move, and you take some off the table, and then you get a bigger move, and you walk away, and you just call it a good trade. And I kind of live by that. Wait and see. As long as the downside again doesn't make it where you're feeling it so much. I mean, that was an easy one. Tilray's another one. Like, just buy it. I mean, you're not going to put $18,000 into it, but put 700, $800 into that. You'll be all right. It'll come back around for you, and that's kind of how I live um, in this market or in any market with things that I trust the chart, kind of know the company that fit certain parameters and just have the feel for me. Um, yeah, yeah, and then just to watch you kind of make your own style in that regard, it's been pretty fun to watch this first 2 quarters of the year.
yeah. And I think part of it too. Something I said, might be almost a year ago by now, but the feeling of starting over every day is
Sucks.
it sucks. It's even if you had a good day, you're still you're still just kind of starting from scratch, and it's hard to feel like you're really building anything when you do that. And that's what most people are doing on these option trader accounts. However, if the account's 1,200 or 5,000 or 300, like they're burning through the whole thing every day, and then they go to the next day, and
Yuck.
you can't build anything doing that. You're just going to end up reloading it every month. Um, So yeah, shares are necessary for building, and then you have your long term idea and your shorter term ideas. As long as you don't let the day trade turn into a swing, turn into a long term bag, and you move it the other direction. I have a long term idea with this. I'm going to take some off the table, etc. Then you kind of get your mind right in that regard.
Yeah, what I think don't work in any setup environment or plan or whatever you want to put it is that 300% you talk about. And I mean, I don't know how else to explain it to people, but if it's green, just taking money over and over again, whether it's $20 or $200 or whatever. I like saying the dollar amount versus the percentage because percentage doesn't mean
Yeah,
shit to me. Um, you're just you see the growth through time. Remember when we had Viperfish in this room? He had $6 in one of his accounts, and he took it like 400 doing that, and it was just that over.
yeah,
Goose too. Goose had $11 in a Robinhood account and took it to like $300, and there was never a 20 or over a $50 win, never. And it's just that
yeah.
that stacking up slowly but surely, constantly taking product or taking profit off the table. I mean, if you want to keep some, yeah, keep a little, but definitely take some on the good days. And it just in the long run, in that long run, I'd be like 2 months. It's going to show its worth. It really will. And I think a lot of people are looking for that one home run, as we call it, over and over again, and they lose just so many base hits doing that. It goes back to my number one thing lately is if you don't believe it's repeatable, you're probably going to fail. Like you're cutting your odds in half by thinking I have to get it here, not I can do it again. And then I've given everyone my golden rule to try to change the mind on that is as soon as you exit a trade, just write down your plan when you're going to be back in it. I mean, get in that mindset of like, I'm going to trade this again, not this is the only trade. And I think that just goes miles for people that are
Um,
trying to do what we do.
yeah, I post that a lot about coin. I'm like, it's gonna let you back in. However good crypto looks right now, it's gonna let you back in. Maybe tomorrow, and then often it does. It'll flush 4% in the morning or something. And
There's only one stock I can think in the last year that ain't letting you back in. Nvidia.
yeah, Nvidia.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
I
it.
mean,
That's it.
yeah, I know. Yeah,
Everything else is gonna let you back in. There's
I
not
mean,
many.
yeah. AVGO even let me back in several times.
Yeah, there's just not,
MSTR too. So yeah,
yeah. There's not many that aren't gonna let you back in. And then the good ones. What up, CLSK? That thing will let you back in all the time. But you got to be comfortable with taking 150, $200 on your 15 or $1,700. You just do. Um,
yeah. And then before we get to SPY, I mean, last thing I'll say on that,
yeah,
a
yeah.
big theme with the smalls is just a more muted flow setup. Soundhound, we caught the massive explosive move that just kept going and going. Not really going to get that. You're going to be within this new range, and it's going to be smaller, but it's still going to let you back in.
Hmm.
You just have to understand you need to take some money. It gets up near $6, you better take some off the table. So that's part of it too. Stocks evolve, stocks change. Um, Parabolic move, pull back, find some strength, and we go from
Yeah,
there.
I think we nailed that one um, twice. Obviously on the first move, but then afterwards, tempering everyone's expectations that hey, this 4 to 6 is 50%. If you want more, you're an asshole. and
Yeah,
and it's played that out. And I mean, you've seen the notes this week. That's going to walk it up a dollar at a time, in my opinion. But that's a tradable range, especially for how I trade. So,
yeah, absolutely.
SPY numbers real quick. Man, we pretty much were on top of each other last week. 521, 534, 533 was the top. 524 was the bottom. So we missed the bottom by like $3. Um, yeah, I don't know. I don't know what else you want from us when it comes to SPY, but that's pretty accurate
Yeah,
on both of us. Seems just like that's kind of where we are with this. Is this there's not a lot of downside pressure, um, And then, like most moves, you get a big sell off or a big pump to the top. It's not going to be the same speed in the retrace, um, but you're going to have the retrace over time, and it's usually probably the easier way to trade. Anyone that bought SPY uncomfortably on that red candle probably doing okay right now.
Yes, absolutely. And I mean, I'm not seeing a lot of downside pressure in options. A lot of the highest open interest contracts are just dead. I mean, there's, 628, 395p is not going to be doing anything.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
just, there's no volume to it. It's just sitting there dead. So, so you don't have those big downside contracts that I'm seeing kind of wake up to indicate a big pullback. Like I caught on the last one. I'm just not seeing that. So I do think we just kind of get into some price discovery and grind up a bit. I think there's some pretty big potential. The Mag Seven stocks can just kind of stall, consolidate for a bit. That can handcuff SPY. So it's just kind of a tighter range. Maybe is what I'm looking for. Um, Give you some numbers here.
This week's hard for me. I got the upside figured out, but the downside's just it's a tough spot for me to figure out. TA wise.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with let's say spot it. Yeah, there it is. 524.10 will be my downside. And do you think we get back to all time highs pretty easily? Yeah, I'll go with 534.93.
I'm a little bit higher than you. I got 536.69. Shout out Goose. Um, Again, the upside, we're just picking a spot where you think you'll get sell pressure at. There's really nothing on the chart. But I'm
Yeah,
sticking to my 521.11, this auto RTL ab on the 1 hour chart, as the sky is falling bottom. Not necessarily that we'll get it or we have a news catalyst to get that, especially in a short week. Um, but I'm just not going to pull a number out my ass. I'm still going to go with the TA spot.
yeah.
My 50 SMA on the daily is like 515. That seemed too low, so I really don't have a bottom level here on anywhere. I just don't really. I mean, there's nothing I could really give you. And this is 522, so I'd rather just go with this auto RTL on the day. So yeah, we're pretty close. I'm $2 higher, $2 lower. So my what range is a little. I guess that's the differential this week is I have a bigger candle than you by let's say $4 or $5.
Yeah, and I mean, and part of it, a Friday read on a 3-day weekend is not going to give you much, but I do think um, the tighter range might be the thing. So leaning on that.
Yeah. Well, I know when we're close, we're usually we're better when we're close. When me and you diverge a lot, it's not a
Yeah.
good thing. It's not a good thing. And when we're close, it is a good thing. So, do you, what are your last thought here before we get to work? What are your short week? How's the short week pan out here?
Um, I'm uh, I'm probably going to lean on crypto a lot, just because I can track it through the weekend and still just pretty close to the vest for me. I'm running out of smalls because they've done so well. I don't have I haven't had a lot of new ones to load back up on. So just going to put a lot of focus into energy. I do want to get on our midweek session whenever we can with experiences theme. Had some big news from Live Nation about kind of an antitrust deal for them. So that'll be fun to get into as well.
Perfect. You free tomorrow?
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
let's pick a time and just do it then.
Okay. That sounds good.
Perfect.
Yeah.
All right. You ready to get to work?
Yeah. I'll grab some
All
coffee.
right. Like and subscribe for more people. Link somewhere.
Okay.